Hello, and welcome again to another edition of NCI Live. I'm your host, David Groth, the Technical Solution Specialist here at Network Center. Today's topic is Lenovo AI-ready machines. Joining me today is Richard Smutze. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, you've got it.
Very cool. You're a Chief Channel Technologist with Lenovo, and we'll be discussing what AI ready is, some of the hardware aspects of AI. So I'm excited to talk about this. I know we've had a chance to talk kind of offline, and this is going to be a fun discussion. So for those of you that are joining us live, we are live on both YouTube and LinkedIn. So please feel free to put your questions, if you have any, in the chat, and Richard or I will do our best to answer any of those questions and try to answer them live on the air here today. That said, Richard, welcome.
Thank you, David. Glad
How
to
are
be
you?
here.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well today. How are you?
Very good. I would say it's an exciting time. AI is doing a lot for a lot of different people, and what's curious to me and what I find very interesting is how hardware is being impacted by this new surge in AI. What are you seeing?
So as we talked earlier, one of the things is seeing a lot of confusion around terminology. We started last year with hearing a lot of information around AI PC. Then all of a sudden we moved to AI ready. And it's sort of like, okay, well, what's the difference between the two? Because that's caused some confusion. So I'm going to start with that just because it's a definition and it lets us all understand where we're at. So AI PC quickly ended up with a standard of needing a minimum of 40 tops or 40 tera operations per second to be considered an AI PC. That caused a little bit of a problem for all of us, Lenovo and everybody else that builds PCs, because the processors didn't meet that standard. So as the new processors were rolled out, we've got the Intel Core Ultra that gets close, but doesn't get to that actual 40. It's about 34, 35 tops. The AMD Ryzen, again, comes around the same basic area, but a little bit short of that 40. So they had to come up with a new term and say, well, what are these if they're not AI PCs? So we've got the term AI-ready PC.
Right. Gotcha.
And that just means that we're going to do some work on the device, and then we're going to need an assistant, whether that's in the cloud from one of the cloud providers, whether it's in your data center, whether it's from somebody like ChatGPT, Copilot, but you're going out and getting additional processing power from somewhere to do the work.
Get you over that hump
Yeah.
to make that to make it so that you can say that.
Yes. So
Yeah.
we're it's the first baby step into AI at a laptop, a desktop, some type of a device. And that's critical because it's letting people start to get their feet wet.
Right.
And we had talked about Copilot briefly, and Copilot's a great example because Copilot's got so many features
Mhm.
that are available to help us and really start to make that step forward. And I've heard it called the mechanical revolution of IT. And I look at it as more the mechanical revolution of productivity because for all of
Yeah.
us, it doesn't have to just be an an IT job that's going to be impacted.
Right. No, that's very true. IT will be, instrumental in. They may not even be instrumental in implementing it per se. They're going to be instrumental, I think, in laying the groundwork for it. It's like people Ford invented the car, or not invented. Ford popularized the car, right? The
Hmm.
Model T, made it available for everyone. But somebody had to make the roads, right? Somebody had to make the highway systems. And, you know, that's kind of how I liken it because you've got to have that infrastructure and all these pieces built out. And the hardware is one component of that. Now, that brings up a good point. Why, we're talking about AI ready or AI machines, both were the two topics. Why would we want to have an AI PC, specifically an AI PC? What's the motivation behind that? Can't any old PC work? What's the point?
So that's a great question. And hopefully, I'm going to try and keep this high level and not get too far in the weeds in answering the question. But what Intel, AMD, and quite frankly, Qualcomm, which I probably should have mentioned earlier, is the only vendor today that actually meets that 40 tops. So if you have a Qualcomm laptop, you can actually have an AI PC today. So it's not like we can't get there. Um, but what AMD and Intel have both done is they've added NPUs, neural processing units, to their CPU package. So we have the central processing unit that we've all been using for years and years, and we're used
Right.
to that. And then we've got a lot of workstations and mobile workstations that have got GPUs in them for graphical processing units. And I'm just going to say we've been using those a lot in gaming. Uh,
Yeah.
so I'll come back to that, but we'll set it aside for a minute. And then that MPU is new, and it's a neural processing unit. And what that neural processing unit is doing is it's allowing us to go out and do a lot of vector database type things. It's doing large language model type workloads. So Chat GPT, RAG, all of those things fall into that neural processing unit. So what that means is I'm going to be able to basically have my own personalized large language model on my device. Why I want that, and this goes into another topic that we had talked about, there are two types of, well, really sort of three, but really two types of AI. There's public and there's private.
Right.
So if I want to get information about myself or about my family or things that I'm doing, I may not want that information to be out in the public domain. So I don't want to use AI tools that are public because I'm giving them permission to reuse, to use that information for training, to do lots of different things with it. Where if I have this on a personal device, maybe I wanted to build an Excel spreadsheet with Monte Carlo simulations to run my retirement accounts through.
Yep.
Well, I don't want everyone seeing my retirement accounts, but I do want to see, okay, if we hit a 2000 type financial situation right when I retire, what happens to my retirement plan?
Yep.
Well, I can do that and have it private. If I did it
So
on Chat GPT, now all that information is technically public.
it's publicly, like it could be publicly
Yeah,
available,
it's not
depending on, right.
it's not gonna somebody's gonna go search on it, but my data would end up in training models for other things and could potentially be
Mhm.
exposed.
Potentially correct. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so that's why you don't want to necessarily, you want to be
So,
careful when you're using a public environment that you're not putting private information, personal identifiable information, or your company's IP
mhm,
onto a public model.
absolutely. So bringing it back just a moment on, we talked about NPUs and GPUs and a lot of the three-letter acronyms that go along with
Yeah.
hardware. Um, So to, I'm old enough where, go back to the old days where you had a 386, if anybody out there remembers those. You could actually have the 386 and then you could buy the math coprocessor
Hmm.
where you wanted to do floating point operations, and, very compute intensive stuff, not just 1 + 1 = 2, but where you had to do, logarithmic calculations and things for for graphics somewhat, but also for just more advanced type math. At any rate, you would buy a separate chip for that and you plop it in, and then all of a sudden those operations would go up. NPUs, similar,
Similar.
right? Except you're not buying a chip and plopping it in. These are pre-designed as part of the system, or could be.
Yes.
Um, then GPUs is graphics processing unit, and that's going to be one that's, as you mentioned, is going to be used for playing, if you're playing, I'm going to say Fortnite, it's a popular game, but I don't know that it needs a whole lot of graphics processing. But it takes all that computing power that's needed rather than having the CPU do the heavy lifting and do everything. It's taking that piece, offloading it, letting the CPU do what it does best.
Yes.
So, and in that, and from what you're saying, in that, if I'm going to have my own local conversational AI with my own local, large language models and my own data, then having all of that in one machine is, or pieces of that, whether it be an NPU, GPU, CPU combination, or like CPU, NPU, CPU, GPU, any of those that meet the criteria for a AI PC. Now, the question being, so kind of to bring it back to, you talked about private versus public. Public AIs are extremely popular right now. And we also see these AI ready or Copilot PCs or Copilot, pick one. I'm going to pick Copilot because it's Microsoft, and Microsoft is a 500-pound gorilla when it comes to pretty much anything.
Especially when it
Um,
comes to endpoint
yep.
devices.
When it comes to endpoint devices, they have their own. They also influence other manufacturers. I'm sure Lenovo is no
Mhm.
exception. So, can you talk to the point of what does that AI ready mean for, say, a Copilot, because we have a lot of customers that look for how is it going to affect my AI implementation in a public. It's semi-private, so we say it's for my company only.
Yeah. So that's a great question. And it leads into quite frankly, a security question.
Mhm.
So I'll use Lenovo as an example.
Yep.
Um, we have put in place AI policies and procedures. So if I'm going to do a AI query and it's going to be anything that could potentially be Lenovo IP or Lenovo confidential, I am required to use our personal large language model where we've loaded our company docs into it. Then I can go do that search and
Right.
get not a bunch of random things. I will only get Lenovo specific, but it will not go out to a public device.
Right.
That being said, there are other queries that I'm going to do, like just for this session as an example. I went out to Copilot and I told Copilot, give me a summary of Copilot offerings.
Yep.
Well, that's not Lenovo confidential.
No. No.
So I used a public forum to do that.
Mhm.
So I'm going to keep the company's data on a private model. I'm going
Certainly.
to do other things on a public model. And that makes sense because when you look at it, how much does it cost to run an AI query?
Right.
And it's like 70 times the expense is running a Google query.
Right.
Right now, they're free. Don't count on that for a long term because they're too expensive.
I think, yeah, I think everyone is preparing for that day.
It,
But I have to interject and say that I don't think at the present time that they're a free thing, like a free query. You'd have to do some back of the envelope math, but I'm sure that with the private AIs, and I say private in my case, I'm saying private like I'll say semi-private, like Copilot, and then there are other companies that are creating their own AIs for company consumption, but they're subscription
yes.
models and everything else. So those queries, whilst you might have an unlimited number of queries, you're still paying for the licensing for those. Those are a for pay thing. And that security and peace of mind then comes along with that license. So each query at some point costs, a
Yes.
fraction of a penny maybe would be a
Well, so I'm going to split up what you said. Absolutely. If I'm using the Lenovo private AI large language model,
right. Yep.
Lenovo is paying for that query
Oh yeah.
100%.
Yep. 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 Yep.
Now, when I go out and do the public offering of Copilot, I'm not paying
Yes.
for that
Yeah.
because
The
I'm
public,
using the
the
public.
Bing Copilot, the
Yes,
one
I'm
that's for
using the
free. Yes.
public version of it.
Absolutely. Right.
Now, Lenovo could go out to Microsoft and say, we want to buy private space in Azure Cloud and use your facilities to do our private Copilot offerings.
Hmm.
In which case they would again be private, even though they're running in the cloud. It is a designated private cloud situation, so we're secure. So we
Right.
could do that. And I used Azure just because we're talking Copilot. It could be any
Yeah.
public cloud offering.
Amazon has their
Exactly.
own facilities for doing that, as does Google. So
Right. So I wasn't trying to plug anybody, just
no,
just saying,
and neither
yeah,
was I.
it's available.
Sometimes it's just the easiest one to think of because we're talking
Yes,
hardware. Usually we're talking Windows, i.e. Microsoft. So it's usually the first, you know.
absolutely. So yeah, it does get really interesting. And it also, I'm going to throw out, to me, it opens a unique selling opportunity for folks right now
Mhm.
because I've never been one that subscribes to you take an end user, you take an OEM, you put a leasing party in the middle and it's cheaper for the customer
Mhm.
because somebody's making a profit.
Mhm.
Now, right now, I'm wholeheartedly going use TrueScale for Lenovo's pay-as-you-use subscription, use GreenLake for
Mhm.
HPE. I forget what Dell's offering is, but only buy these AI-ready PCs for a year until the new ones are out, and then
And that's a
upgrade.
really good point. You know, Moore's law notwithstanding, I mean, I don't think Moore's law even really applies anymore these days because now it's faster than Moore's law.
Yes,
Like Moore's law has been superseded. I've forgive me, I don't remember. Somebody commented that Moore's law was outdated about 3 years ago because it used to be every 18 months. Now it's a lot faster
yes,
because you mentioned Qualcomm, Snapdragons, those, right there. Now we've got a combination architectures of the different, processors that where we're no longer limited by die size, right?
mhm,
We still have that limit, but now they're working outside the die size limitation by specializing in chipsets like GPUs, NPUs, and other things.
yeah.
So,
And when you look at that, that's just the beginning because the technologies that are on, I don't even want to say on the drawing board right now, they're in proof of concepts right now, and they're doing specs on different release levels. We're going to see things, we mentioned CPU, GPU, NPU, but we also have a DPU that's going to be out for moving data more effectively across the network.
yeah,
We're going to have a second tier memory that is going to start showing up in these systems so that we can handle it. Because as we start doing bigger and bigger
that's awesome.
models, even on our personal devices, we're going to need memory on the GPUs. We're going to need bigger memory footprints on the devices themselves. And
Yep.
we're going to need larger storage as we start putting all of our personal information in to run that model against. And
So
when we run that model, we generate more data.
that's right. I mean, it's always about in any business that uses computers, which is most, if not all of them, it's always about the data that you're gathering and generating,
Yep,
right? And keeping track of it. Um, and using any new product on it, whether it be just as simple as Word, Excel, PowerPoint, whether it be your accounting software, whether it be AI, you still have to understand your data. And it's gotten to the point where people have kind of let their data get out of their control. And I've been a big proponent of, as you mentioned, saying, okay, well, this data is IP, it's intellectual property. This is very sensitive data. Whereas this data, we don't care. This is fine. This is just for public consumption. But now with AI, you have to be able to tell it what is the difference, right?
absolutely.
And along with that, as that gets more complicated, from what I'm hearing you say, the data the data, which is DPU, data PU,
Yeah,
that's going to be dedicated to maybe even having its own AI that will categorize something as sensitive, non-sensitive. So yeah, I agree. That's just to the next generations. And I think the generational thing of keeping your hardware for 5 years, those days are I think those days are gone.
yeah. When you look at anyone that's trying to be, and I'm going to use the term sort of loosely here, but being productive. When you look at how much faster you can do different tasks today using AI, and then you look at how much more horsepower you're going to have a year from now, and a
Yep.
year after that, and a year after that.
Yep.
Like I said, I'm not a proponent of I historically have not been a proponent of leasing things. But right now, devices as a service to me makes sense because I'm looking at how fast these things are changing. Going, I'm going to want to upgrade these about every 12 to 18 months max, not every 3 to 5 years. So it's changing the dynamics, not just of the hardware, it's changing the dynamics of our purchasing, it's changing the dynamics of our productivity, it's changing everything from a work environment
Agreed.
and
I,
by
I do need to
extension, a personal environment.
absolutely. I do need to interject here for just a moment and remind those that are watching us live to please feel free to interject with your questions. So we are live and happy to, we love to talk. We're happy to just have this conversation. But if any of our listeners or watchers want to ask a question, by all means, uh, chat us in YouTube or LinkedIn. So back to one of the big questions then, as we've talked about all the technical aspects and all these pieces, as a business owner, manager, what have you, the big question is, do I buy an AI-ready PC, or do I just not worry about the AI-ready and just buy a regular old PC and just go? It, the cost benefit piece, because that's a question that everybody's going to ask is what are the true benefits of an AI-ready PC?
So an AI-ready PC is going to give you faster processing and AI tasks today. So it's going to give you some performance if you're doing AI task. If you're not doing any AI tasks, it's not going to give you a bonus.
Yep.
If I put myself in as a business owner, and I used to run my own business, so it's pretty easy for me to go back into that mode.
Yep.
I'm looking at productivity, and I'm looking at how do I take advantage of what the industry is making available. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but at this point in time, I'm going to find somebody that's going to give me a good DAS deal.
Yep.
And I'm going to use what I can today, because what I can do with an AI ready PC today is I can absolutely go get my staff trained. I can teach them how to do effective queries.
Prompt training.
Yes, exactly.
Prompt training.
And there are some very good guides that are actually being published now around that. So there's a whole science coming out around prompt. And
Oh, yeah.
you can actually start now, get your people trained, and then upgrade on that DAS device when the AI PC comes out, which is going to be early next year. And then we're going to be quickly, as you mentioned, about every 9 to 12 months, you're going to see somebody bringing out the next thing that's faster, more efficient. So why would I not want to just set myself up where I can continually take those steps?
Yeah.
And if I set it up that way and I do the proper training, because right now there are surveys that are coming out where people are saying, we implemented AI and I'm less productive.
That the keys I see out there for a successful, AI is, really the question again is a lot is, well, why do I need it? Well, there's a lot of reasons as to the whys,
Yeah.
but it's more about the how does it
How?
apply to me? Does it make my day better? Does it make my job better? Well, the answer is a definite yes, but people have to make it personal, right?
Yeah.
And in that case, then you come down to that. Like if you're a small business owner or a large business owner, it doesn't really matter. You'll be able to go, okay, yes, I need to be able to do proper prompt. They have the field prompt engineering,
Yeah.
and you see it on resumes now, prompt engineer, prompt engineering, prompt designer, blah, blah, blah. And if you can do that as it respects to hardware, if you have more efficiency there and you have AI adopted or have a plan for adopting it, and you can get the best performance out of it, then you realize the benefits and you realize the and really from what I've seen, the the cost difference is really not there.
Yeah.
It's more
It's
just how
not
the system is
noticeable.
it's just kind of how the system has been designed. It's been
Yes.
optimized. So I like AI ready, but I almost want to, from just a cost benefit thing, I like to think of it as AI optimized personally. That's probably
Yes.
not but that's how I like to think about it.
And that's
So,
not a bad way to think about it.
yeah.
And to your point, it needs to be personal. And I'll
Yeah.
use an example. I was on a call before this one, an internal call, and we
Mm.
were talking with a partner, end user reps, channel reps, and trying to get people lined up.
Mm.
And they're talking about, okay, we're going to sit down and we're going to manually go through these lists. And I'm like, why don't you take those lists and feed them into our internal AI and just let it do it for you?
Right.
I don't. I used to use the term. I used to tell people all the time, "I'm the laziest person you're going to meet, but I got a great work ethic. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get the job done, but I don't want to do busy work." To me, that's busy work. That's what AI is going to be great at eliminating. Is all we have to do is think about it the right way. And
True.
if it's a manual task, AI is going to help you do that manual task. If you have a question about, hey, I need to code Excel to do a specific function for me, and I don't know how to do it because I haven't done that in the last 6 years. Okay, go put it in a prompt and let it give you the code. It'll literally give you the code stream
Yep.
of what you need to do for that. So the AI is really what you have to look at it is I'm going to multiply the productivity of my employees if I give them the right prompt training and get them the right hardware and the right access.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. And that,
and any IP, depending on the size of the company, I can put a large language model, generative AI, whatever term you want to use, I can put that together actually on a workstation for a small business.
yep.
I mean, let's just be, NVIDIA has chat with RTX that you can download. There was
Yes.
an
Yep.
article, Rag to Riches, that lays
Huh.
out exactly how to go set your large language model up in Linux so that you can set it up on a workstation and be private. So there are a lot of guides already out there that will help a small business do it, will help a business run a POC. And you can run a POC for nothing these days when you start looking at, hey, I'm going to start on a workstation. I don't even need to put in a large environment.
Right.
And then I can move up from there. Now, if I got 50 employees that all want to do queries at the same time, it's not going to work.
Right.
But one at a time, yeah, it'll work. May not be as fast as some of the other things, but I can get the POC in, I can prove it out, and I can decide whether I want to invest in that technology.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's great information. We've really covered quite a bit. We've tried to pigeonhole just hardware and really just that one topic, but it's really difficult to go through all of it. And I wanted to say we've really come to the end of our time here. It's flown by.
It,
It
it
always
has. It
seems
seems
to,
like it's been 5 minutes, not 30 minutes.
right? So I wanted to let our viewers know that if they didn't hear what they wanted to hear or didn't want to get more information, you can go ahead and email us at info@netcenter.net. You can visit us on our website at www.netcenter.net. You can also visit us on any of our social media channels, including Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. The latter two we go live on approximately every 2 weeks. And if you happen to follow us on YouTube, please click the subscribe button and the notification bell so you get notified when we go live approximately every 2 weeks. Also, we have an announcement, our upcoming Envision conference, November 14th, 2024. So save the date, mark your calendars. It is free to attend. You can visit the www.netcenter.net and you'll be able to look up the Envision information and register for the event. And come see us. Full day worth of presenters, speakers. Lenovo will be there. Talk to them about all the different products that they have, as well as their AI-ready machines. That said, Richard, thanks again for joining us. You've been a wealth of information. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks, David. I really enjoyed it. So
All right.
have a great
And
day.
for those, you too, and for those of you joining us, thanks for joining us here on NCI Live.